I'm not speaking All right, I'd like to introduce Lee to you. And she said if you forget when you see your name tag, it looks like Leah, but if you remember T, it rhymes with Lee. Her name's Lee Morgan. She's a minister's wife of 36 plus years, a mother of 2 or 4 grown sons. She and her husband, Trey, speak to thousands of couples each year at their Stronger Marriage and Family workshops and through their Stronger Marriage podcast. They also have authored 3 books together. Her favorite hobby, you and I have the same hobby, is spoiling her 3 grandchildren. Trey and Lee live in Lubbock, Texas, where Trey is the lead minister with the Sunset Church of Christ. Welcome.
I did not bring any of the 3 books that we've authored together. Usually we try to take them when we travel, but we did not have room. We just wanted to do our little carry-ons and not check bags, so we didn't bring books. But I did bring these little flyers. I saw somebody sitting out in the audience that has been on one of our cruises with us. So we do marriage seminars all over the country, usually at churches. But about once a year, we do a marriage cruise, and we partner with Wayne and Tammy Roberts, who do His Shoes, Her Shoes seminars. You may or may not know Wayne and Tammy. But next February, we are not doing a cruise. We're just going to do a seminar on the sand, is what it's called. We're going to go to Cancun and do a marriage workshop with Wayne and Tammy. We'll have some sessions, a couple of different mornings, and then you'll have loads and loads of free time to just have fun in Cancun at a resort. If you're interested and want some more information, you can pick up one of those. There's our travel agent that you can get in touch with, and she can give you all of the info on that. So enough of that. Thank you for being here. I was not sure. I'm not familiar with the other speakers, and I'm anxious to get to hear some of them. So, Hawafa said he wanted to meet me this morning and see who his competition was. I don't know about that, but anyway, being a Hannah in a world of Jezebels. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about Jezebel because, we don't want to give her that much attention. Do you know anybody named Jezebel? Do you?
Yes.
Do you? Yes. Okay. You went on our cruise with
We
us.
did.
Yes. I was like, do you know anybody?
I had a student named Jezebel.
Isn't that something? It's not, I'm not thinking it's a very common name. I don't know anybody. I know a few Delilahs. That's another one of those names that we tend to shy away from, but I do know a few Delilahs. Have never met a Jezebel.
We almost named our Delilah.
Yeah. It's coming back around. It is. Delilah's coming back around. We need to redeem that name, right? But Jezebel, that's not one we hear very often because that name has kind of become a synonym for wickedness. She was a wicked woman. She was malicious. She was revengeful. She was cruel. She persecuted God's prophets. She had no principles that guided her. She had no fear of God or man. She was a nasty woman. She was passionate about heathen worship and idolatry. And she also raised a daughter who was just like her, who was just as wicked as she was. So, for that reason, I feel like we don't name our babies Jezebel that much. But Hannah, on the other hand, Hannah, that's a name that we can get behind, right? Are there some Hannahs? There's one. Is there any more Hannahs in here? I'm sure y'all know. I know so many Hannahs. It's a beautiful name. And it means grace of God or favor of God, gift of God. That's something we can aspire to. She's in sharp contrast to Jezebel, right? When we think of Hannah, we think of somebody who exemplified patience, prayerfulness, faith, meekness, submission, spiritual devotion, motherly love, I don't know if y'all think of all those. We usually think of the prayer, right? She was faithful in prayer, but we can learn so many more lessons from Hannah when we really dive in to 1 Samuel chapter 1. She also raised a son, Samuel, who was a towering figure in Israel's history. So, I don't know about you, but I think our world needs a whole lot more grace and favor, like Hannah, and a whole lot less wickedness and depravity, like Jezebel exemplified. So, as daughters of God, of course, we want to be Hannahs. We want to use her as an example to follow. So, let's just dive right in. 1 Samuel chapter 1. I hope you have your Bible so you can read along with me, because we got to look at this whole story. We got to get the whole picture before we can really start breaking it down. So we're just going to take a minute, and we're going to look at this whole 1 Samuel chapter 1, because I'm going to be referring back to several of these verses. Okay, so I'm not going to spend too much time telling you about where Elkanah was from. Let's look at verse 2. Elkanah had two wives, Hannah and Peninnah. I don't know. Peninnah had children, but Hannah did not. So each year, Elkanah would travel to Shiloh to worship and sacrifice to the Lord of Heaven's armies at the tabernacle. I'm reading from the New Living Translation just because it's a little more modern. It reads easy. The priests of the Lord at the time were the sons of Eli, Hophni, and Phinehas. On the days Elkanah presented his sacrifice, he would give portions of the meat to Peninnah and each of her children. And though he loved Hannah, he would give her only one choice portion because the Lord had given her no children. So Peninnah would taunt Hannah and make fun of her because the Lord had kept her from having children. Year after year, it was the same. Peninnah would taunt Hannah as they went to the tabernacle. Each time, Hannah would be reduced to tears and would not even eat. "Why are you crying, Hannah?" Elkanah would ask. "Why aren't you eating? Why be downhearted just because you have no children? You have me. Isn't that better than having 10 sons?"
No.
So, okay, go ahead with me, because when I first read that, I was like, how arrogant was he? But we're gonna look at this tomorrow in a whole different light. Okay, maybe one you've never thought of. So tomorrow morning we are going to look at that statement from the eyes of marriage, and you're gonna appreciate it. I promise. Okay. Once, okay, I'm in verse 9. Once after a sacrificial meal at Shiloh, Hannah got up, went to pray. Eli the priest was sitting at his customary place beside the entrance of the tabernacle. Hannah was in deep anguish, crying bitterly as she prayed to the Lord. And she made this vow: "O Lord of Heaven's armies, if you will look upon my sorrow and answer my prayer and give me a son, then I will give him back to you. He will be yours for his entire lifetime. And as a sign that he has been dedicated to the Lord, his hair will never be cut." Okay, the Nazarite vow. As she was praying to the Lord, Eli watched her. He saw her lips moving, but he heard no sound. He thought she'd been drinking. "Must you come here drunk?" he demanded. "Throw away your wine." "Oh, no, sir," she replied. "I haven't been drinking wine or anything stronger. I am very discouraged. I was pouring out my heart to the Lord. Please don't think I am a wicked woman. I have been praying out of great anguish and sorrow." "In that case," Eli said, "go in peace. May the God of Israel grant the request you have asked of him." "Oh, thank you, sir," she exclaimed. And then she went back, began to eat again, and she was no longer sad. So the entire family got up early the next morning. They went to worship the Lord once more. They returned home to Ramah. When Elkanah slept with Hannah, the Lord remembered her plea, and in due time she gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, for she said, "I asked the Lord for him." The next year, Elkanah and his family went on their annual trip to offer a sacrifice to the Lord and to keep his vow. Hannah did not go. She told her husband, "Wait until the boy is weaned, and I will take him to the tabernacle and leave him there with the Lord permanently." "Whatever you think is best," Elkanah agreed. "Stay here for now. May the Lord help you keep your promises." So she stayed home and nursed the boy till he was weaned. When he was weaned, Hannah took him to the tabernacle. Let's see. Okay, verse 28. Now I'm giving him to the Lord, and he will belong to the Lord his whole life. And they worshiped the Lord there. Chapter 2, she praises the Lord for giving her the son that she had prayed so long for. So, thank you for bearing with me for reading. I don't like to just read long things, but I just thought, okay, we just have to get the whole context here before we dive in. But the first thing we see about Hannah is that she desired motherhood. This was the longing of her soul. It was her one ambition in life. And truly the ministry of motherhood is a great ministry. It is one of our greatest callings. It should not be taken lightly. C.S. Lewis, love this quote. He said, children are not a distraction from more important work. They are the most important work, right? Mothers are the architects of the next generation. Think about that. Think about how much power we have as women to raise light bearers, to raise difference makers. We can shape the future through the children that we raise. And that's what we need to do. That's what we need to do to combat the wickedness that's prevalent in our world. It starts in our one little corner, right? We can make a difference in our little corner of the world. And we never know. You know, Hannah raised Samuel, and look at what he did. So it takes intentionality, though, to raise these kind of children. We have to be intentional. Now, there can be some good kids that happen, you know, in spite of their raising, in spite of their parents. There can be some good kids. But for the most part, the good kids are coming out of a home that was intentional at pointing them to God, at pointing them to Christ. So just quickly, some ways that we can be intentional in raising our children. From the time they get up in the morning till the time they go to bed, have those little conversations about God. Talk to them about their character and what you see in them. Children become what they hear, don't they? They become what they hear. Have you seen the movie The Help or read the book? Do you remember the nanny who told the little girl every day,
You are smart, you are kind, you are smart.
Okay, you're smart, you're kind, you're important. Was that it?
Yeah.
She told her that multiple times a day. And that little girl ended up being smart, kind, and important. So if we can think of, you know, what if you want to instill in your children? What kind of character do you want your children to have? And tell them that. Tell them, you know, you are smart, you are kind, you are special, God loves you, and so do I. You know, those kinds of things. Repeat those things over and over to your children because they're going to become what they hear. Come on in. You know, think about some of the times that you have to spend with your children. If you take them to school in the mornings or pick them up from school, use that time, especially early in the morning. You can set the tone for their day. If you have conversations in the car, maybe you can pray with them in the car before you drop them off for school. When you pick them up, don't just ask them, how was your day? Because what kind of answer are you going to get?
Fine.
It's fine. Right? What'd you do today? Nothing. You have to ask pointed questions. If you want answers, you've got to ask, you know, so ask them, where did you see Jesus at school today? Did you see Jesus when you were at school? Were you Jesus at school today? How were you kind to somebody today? You know, ask them those kinds of questions, and that helps them to begin to behave in such a way that they're looking for Jesus, that they're trying to be Jesus. Pray with them before bedtime. I mean, just use every opportunity that you have to be intentional at the way that you're raising our children, because they're not going to be good kids by accident, right? And the way that Hannah immediately dedicated her son to the Lord and gave him over to serve in the tabernacle, that shows that she understood that motherhood was a high calling. I mean, literally giving her child back to God. That is being very intentional. Now, I'm not saying that motherhood is the only proper role for women. I know some beautiful women who have never had children, and that's okay. Some women choose to never marry. Some women choose to just not have children. Some women struggle with infertility, and they come to grips with that. But motherhood is not the only thing that women are good for. Okay, so hear me on that. Besides motherhood, there's so many lessons we can continue to learn from Hannah. So let's look at another one. Hannah displayed meekness when she was provoked. In verse 6 and 7, it talks about Peninnah taunting her. And it says she would taunt her and make fun of her because the Lord had kept her from having children. It reduced her to tears, and she would not even eat. I mean, it's not fun to be made fun of. It's not fun to be taunted. And what is our natural response to that most of the time?
Aggression.
We want to retaliate, right? We want to retaliate. But we have no record of Hannah retaliating. We have no record of that. And it shows great strength to not retaliate. Meekness, the definition of that is strength under control, right? It takes so much strength to not have a word back to somebody that's biting. Proverbs 15:1, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. There's immense power in a gentle answer, or no answer at all in the face of aggravation. So Peninnah was very much a Jezebel here, right? She was bullying. She was a downright bully. And I just want to say to y'all that we, as women of God, must never be the reason that somebody is reduced to tears. We must never be that reason. We need to teach our children, because it has become such a huge, huge problem, bullying.
Yeah.
We have got to teach our children that that is not okay. That they need to stand up for others. If they see somebody that's being bullied, teach them to look for their peer, or for kids at school that maybe are sitting alone, that don't seem to have friends, and try to teach them, they need a friend. They need somebody to sit with them in the cafeteria so that they're not being made fun of, those kinds of things. And we can set that example. We really can. Think about potlucks. When we go to potlucks, we love our potlucks. And we love to sit with our friends and visit. It's a good time. But think about this. How many times have you gone through the line and you get your plate and you're trying to figure out where to sit, and you see your friends over here, but you see Mrs. Jones sitting over here by herself? Who do you think we should go sit with? What kind of example would we set for our children if we said, hey, look, Miss Jones is sitting over there by herself. Let's go keep her company. You're teaching your children. Look for those who are alone. Be a friend to those who are alone, who need a friend. So we can do that. Female elephants. Y'all ever seen a documentary on female elephants? Have you seen it? It's so fascinating. So female elephants understand sisterhood and standing up for others. In the wild, when a mama elephant is giving birth, all the other female elephants in the herd back around her in formation. Like they literally close ranks so that the delivering mama cannot even be seen in the middle. They just make a circle all the way around her so that they're keeping watch, for predators. They stomp and they kick up dirt, and that tries to throw attackers off of the scent. And they surround the mama and the incoming baby in protection. And they're sending a clear signal to predators that if they want to attack their friend while she's vulnerable, they're going to have to come through 40 tons of female aggression first. Okay? Don't mess with me. Don't mess with her. And when the baby elephant is delivered, the sister elephants do two things. They kick dirt over the newborn to protect their fragile skin. And then, this is so cool, they all start trumpeting. in celebration of the new life, of sisterhood, of something beautiful being born in a harsh world despite predators and odds and attackers and enemies. And scientists tell us that elephants do this. They make this formation in 2 different cases. When they're under attack by predators, like lions or whatever, or during the birth of a new elephant. And so this is what we do, right? This is what we do, girls. We are like the elephants who are going to surround our sisters when they're vulnerable, when they're giving birth, maybe not physically, maybe they're just giving birth to new ideas. Maybe they're trying something new that they've never tried before. And we can surround them, we can encourage them. Or maybe they're under attack. You know, maybe they just need people to surround them so they can create, so they can deliver, so they can heal, so they can recover. But we want to get in formation and close ranks and have each other's backs. You want to mess with our sister? You got to come through us first. Good luck, right? So when delivery comes, when new life makes its entrance, when healing finally begins, when the night is past and our sister is ready to rise back up, we sound our trumpets. We celebrate with her. We cheer. We give thanks. And we need to do that for each other as well. We need to celebrate when our sisters celebrate. We need to mourn when they mourn. We need to get information for others. If you see a fellow female at work who's down and out, reach out to her. See what she needs. See what you can do for her. Maybe it's just, maybe you're checking out your groceries and you see a mama in that dreaded self-checkout line and her baby's screaming and her toddler's trying to throw candy in the basket. Lend a helping hand, right? We can do that. If you see a woman who's, ringing you up and she just can't seem to smile for anything, offer her a compliment. You never know what a compliment can do to change somebody's day. Show up for people by sending an encouraging card or text message or just by bringing food to their doorstep when you know they're going through something. When you say you're going to pray for somebody, do it right then. Just do it right then. Women, I hate to say it, we can be so mean and catty and backbiting to each other. I hope nobody in this room, but I know people who are. Being rude comes very easy for some, especially under the cover of social media. Have you seen it? Oh my goodness. It's just as easy to be kind as it is to be rude and hateful. It is. I follow this site called Thrifted Home Decor and More. And so it's where I love to thrift. And it's, fellow thrifters. And we put pictures up of, some of our finds and how we've incorporated into our home decor. So there was one lady who made a post of her home. And it's mostly thrifted finds. Y'all, I've never seen so much stuff in all my life. It was on every table surface, on every square inch of wall. And I just thought, okay, the comments are going to be brutal. And they were brutal. And I just thought, why do people have to be so mean? Why? So I thought, okay, I may not help anything at all, but I want to say something positive. And even though it wasn't my thing, I'm just going to say that it was not my thing. I said, you have some great finds. And she did. It was true. That was true. And it was positive and it was easy to do. Mm-hmm. It's just like Mama always said, if you can't say something nice, don't say it. Or keep scrolling. Just scroll right on by. Social media, we just think it gives us the license. We don't know those people, so we can say whatever we want to say. No. Those people have feelings just like we do. And we need to be more like the sister elephants and rally in support, even to strangers, even under the cover of social media. and teach our children to do the same. So, I gotta get busy. Okay, so Hannah, another lesson we could learn is that she remained faithful to God during her struggles. She worshiped God, even though things were not going her way. We see that in verse 3, where, every year they went to the tabernacle and they worshiped and they sacrificed. We have other people in the Bible that give us examples of this, of worshiping during their struggles. In Psalm 57, and I'm not going to take time to read these. If you are taking some notes somewhere, jot it down. Psalm 57, this is David running for his life and hiding in caves. And yet, he'll know it. He worships. He wrote some beautiful songs that we can read during those hard times. In 2 Samuel 12, verses 19 through 20, David worships after losing a baby. In Acts chapter 16, verses 22 through 25, Paul and Silas are in prison, and y'all know what they do. They worship, they sing. In Daniel chapter 3, verses 17 through 18, when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego refused to bow down to the statue of King Nebuchadnezzar, their lives are literally at stake. And this is what they say: if we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty. But even if he doesn't, we want to make it clear to you that we will never serve your gods or worship the gold statue that you have set up. All of these people worship no matter their circumstance. Horatio Spafford, I don't know if you recognize that name, but you will here in a minute. He knew something about worshiping during hard times. He was a successful attorney and real estate investor, and he lost a fortune in the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. And around this same time, he lost his 4-year-old son to scarlet fever. So he thought some time away would do some good for his family. So he sent his wife and his 4 daughters, put them on a ship that was headed to England. And he planned to join them. He had a little bit of business he needed to tie up some loose ends, and then he was going to join them very soon. Well, the ship collided with another ship and sunk. There were more than 200 people that lost their lives during this terrible collision. And all 4 of Horatio Spafford's precious daughters perished in this crash. And his wife, Anna, was the only one to survive the tragedy. So when she arrived in England, she sent a telegram, and it said, "I've survived alone. What do I do?" So he immediately set sail for England. And at one point during the voyage, the captain of the ship, who knew the tragedy that had struck Spafford's family, summoned him to the place. He said, "We are nearing the place where the tragedy happened." And as Horatio thought about his daughters, words of comfort and hope filled his heart and mind, and he wrote them down. They have since become the well-beloved hymn, "In Peace Like a River." Now, I have been warned that we cannot sing because it will disrupt the other classes, but beautiful, beautiful words to this hymn that brings such a comfort to us, that we can worship even during hard times. Things won't always go our way. We are all going to have hard times, whether it's ridicule, infertility, the loss of a job, an illness, a death. Philippians 4:7 tells us that God's peace exceeds anything we can understand. His peace will guard our hearts and minds as we live in Christ Jesus. So this is interesting. Hannah is the only female that Scripture specifically records going to the tabernacle. She had real intimacy with God. She wanted to be where his presence was. She took her pain to him. She took her problem to the one she knew could solve it. She knew God could be trusted to care for her heart, regardless of the outcome. So this is the part that we are so very familiar with when we think of Hannah. She was patient, but she was very persistent in her prayer. You know, we don't like to wait. We hate waiting. We want instant everything, from instant rice to, Polaroid cameras. Now we have cameras that you can take pictures and you can see them immediately. If you don't like it, you can take another one, right? I know a lot of you sitting in the room, I can tell. We used to have cameras that took film and you take pictures, and however many it had, like 24 exposure or whatever, you'd have to take all the pictures. Then you'd have to go take it to a place, that would develop the pictures, send it off, wait a week or so for them to come back, and then you get the pictures and you realize maybe 2 of them were decent, Yeah. Isn't it great? All this instant stuff we have now. What did we ever do before Amazon Prime? I don't know. Luke 18, verses 1-7 is the parable of the persistent widow. Jesus told his disciples this story to show that they should always pray and never give up. And there was a judge in a certain city, and he said, who neither feared God nor cared about people. A widow of that city came to him repeatedly, saying, "Give me justice in this dispute with my enemy." The judge ignored her for a while, but finally said to himself, "I don't fear God or care about people, but this woman is driving me crazy. And I'm going to see that she gets justice because she's wearing me out with her constant requests." And the Lord said, "Learn a lesson from this unjust judge. Even he rendered a just decision in the end." So don't you think that God will surely give justice to his chosen people who cry out to him day and night? Will he keep putting her off? That judge did not care about that woman. He just wanted to shut her up. But the parable is that God does care about you. So isn't he even more going to see to your requests? But the thing about this is, he's willing to listen as long as it takes, because his timing is not our timing. And his timing is best. But sometimes we don't like his timing because we want everything right now. We want everything instantaneously. And sometimes we don't see the results even in our lifetime. But they can still happen. I have a sweet aunt named Aunt Barney. And her husband, my Uncle Dale, was not a Christian. And she prayed for him his entire life, their entire married life. She prayed for him. And she'd go to church, and she'd come home and she'd try to talk to him about what the preacher talked about, what a great lesson it was. She'd leave her Bible out, hoping he'd take some interest. Sometimes he did, sometimes he didn't. But she continued to pray for him, always. And later in their lives, Aunt Bonnie got Alzheimer's. And Uncle Dale took care of her for as long as he could, and then he finally, the family made the decision that they needed to put her in a care facility. So she, got to the point where she didn't even know him anymore when he would go to visit. But after, it wasn't long after she went to the care facility that my husband, who is a preacher, was given a lesson, and he kind of saw somebody come in and sit down on the back row, and he thought, "Man, that looks like Uncle Dale." And it, really kind of just flustered him there for a minute, because it had been years since he had been inside the church building. Anyway, come to find out, after services were over, it was Uncle Dale. And he kept coming, and he and Trey had some conversations and some studies, and Uncle Dale said, I'm ready to give my life to Jesus. And he did, and it was such a celebration. And here's my sweet Aunt Bonnie in a nursing home and doesn't know any of this is taking place. And Uncle Dale actually got sick and passed away before Bonnie did. And it wasn't too much longer after that, maybe 6 months or so, she passed. And when she passed, all the family was together talking about things, and we said, can you just imagine her excitement when Dale was there to meet her after she had prayed for him his entire life, her entire life, I just think, man, she didn't see those results in her lifetime, but they happened. Her prayer came to pass. God answered that prayer. We just have to stop expecting immediate results, right? Life is not a microwave. Ecclesiastes 3:1 says there is an appointed time for everything, and there is a time for every event under heaven. 2 Peter 3:8 reminds us that a day is like 1,000 years to the Lord, and 1,000 years is like a day. So we just need to remember. Noah waited, it took Noah 120 years to build an ark. Abraham and Sarah waited 25 years for Isaac. Joseph endured 13 years of hardship before rising to power. The Israelites wandered the desert for 40 years before they reached their promised land. David waited 15 years before he became king after he was anointed. Jesus waited 30 years before commencing his ministry. So if God is making you wait, you're in good company. God's timing is not ours, and we don't like waiting, but God has his reasons. We just don't know what they are, but we have to trust, right? We have to have the faith. He may be preparing you for such a time as this. You know, Hannah had Samuel, her son, and maybe God needed Samuel for just the right time to point his people back to him. All we can see is the here and now, but God sees the big picture. And waiting is a time for growing in our faith. It's a time to develop patience and trust in God's plan. So we need to be patient, yet persistent. He wants us to keep telling him over and over. Another lesson that we can learn from Hannah is that prayer is essential and it makes a difference. We know that. Oops, there we go. We've waited and I forget to change my slides. Prayer makes a difference. We know this. James 5:16 says the earnest prayer of a righteous person has great power and produces wonderful results. You know, sometimes when something happens, we say, all we can do now is pray, right? Like that's the last resort. When that's the first thing we should do. That's the first thing we should do. It's the most powerful tool we have. And we have access to it 24/7. Sometimes I realize that when my own prayer life is lacking, it's an indicator of self-reliance, where I'm kind of just feeling like I can do it myself. And I'm failing to tap into that power and that peace that's so readily available to me. You need to tap into that more often. Talking to myself. And Hannah was able to let it go. She prayed to God and she let it go. You know, once she poured out her anguish and grief, she let it go. Verses 16 through 18, she told Eli, don't think I'm a wicked woman, for I've been praying out of great anguish and sorrow. In that case, Eli said, go in peace. May the God of Israel grant the request you've asked. Thank you, sir, she exclaimed. She went back and ate. She was no longer sad. We do ourselves a huge favor when we can let things go. 1 Peter 5:7 says, give all your worries and cares to God. He cares about you. The New Living Translation says, cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. Now that's the New International Version that uses the word cast. So that makes me think of like casting a fishing rod, right? When I read the word cast. But a fishing rod, you know, we cast it out there, but then what do? We're like, okay, here you go, God, I'm giving this to you. But then we reel it back in. I'm going to need this back for a minute. Okay, just kidding. I'm going to need this back. I don't want to just reel it back in every time I cast it out there. But I want to actually deposit it with God and let it go. Let him handle it. Because he can provide the results that I want. A whole lot more than I can do anything about it. She was fully able to give it to God, Hannah was, because she truly had faith in His power and in the effectiveness of prayer. So I love this song also that we cannot sing. I really hadn't planned to sing these because I knew we probably didn't have time. But I wanted to remind us of these words. What a friend we have in Jesus. All our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege to carry everything to God in prayer. Oh, what peace we often forfeit. What needless pain we bear. All because we do not carry everything to God in prayer. Hannah was also a person of integrity. She promised her son to God. What a hard thing to do. You know, God was likely the only person, the only one who heard her promise. And how hard that promise must have been to keep. To literally give your son back to God. But we have to, if we make a promise, we need to keep it. We need to be people of integrity. We need to do what's right, even when nobody else knows it. Because God knows it. If you said it, He knows it. If you thought it, He knows it. Just recently, I gotta wrap this up. But just recently, I put my integrity was put to the test. Had been searching for a lamp for a room. I kind of knew what I wanted anyway. Went to Target one afternoon. Wasn't even looking for a lamp, but there it was. A lamp. And so, you know, it came, the base was separate from the shade where you could mix and match. And I just stuck the shade onto the base, put it in the basket, so it'd be good anyway. So I get up to the register and set it up there, and she brings it up, and it rang up for $20. Well, that was only the shade. And she rang it up $20, said it, and I was like, I can get this lamp for $20. The base was another $40. But in my mind, this would be a bargain. I'm a bargain shopper. But no, it wasn't the right thing to do. That would be like me walking out of the store with part of the lamp that I did not pay for. So, integrity. Nobody would have known anything about that but me and my conscience. Right? So, we need to do what's right. Keeping our promises, keeping our word, just doing what's right. Giving our child to God through the way that we raise them is the highest calling of a mother. You know, we might not drop them off at the doorstep of the church. The preacher doesn't want you to do that. But we certainly need to point them to God every day of their lives. This goes back to that intentionality, right? It's our example. They are always watching. They're listening. They're imitating. Deuteronomy 6:5-7 says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength. Repeat these commands again and again to your children. Talk about them when you're at home, when you're on the road, when you're going to bed, when you're getting up. That's pretty much 24/7, right? Impress God's word on the hearts of your children. You know, and I have to believe that Hannah continued to pray for Samuel. She was a woman of prayer. And I think she continued to pray for him even after she dropped him off at the tabernacle. She, you know, these are some things that we can pray. I don't know what she prayed for Samuel, but I know some things that I prayed for my sons, my 4 sons. Wisdom, that they would have godly friends, that they would have a desire for a relationship with God. I prayed for their future spouses. And I have 3 beautiful, wonderful daughters-in-law. I prayed for protection from harm and temptation. I still pray a lot of these things. And that they would be good, godly husbands and fathers now. Pray for your children. While raising kids. While raising kids, we need to be very careful with our priorities, right? Have y'all heard this? If my kids go to Harvard but not to heaven, I have failed them. If my kids get sports scholarships but don't go to heaven, I have failed them. If my kids win tons of awards but never hear, "Well done, my good and faithful servant," I have failed them. May our kids never regret what we prioritize for them. So we need to make sure our children, here it is, make sure our children are on the ark, right? I saw a Facebook post that was circulating. I do not know Tracy Jaco. This is the person who wrote this post, but it struck a nerve with people, and people shared it. It was one of those. And this is what she wrote. "Tonight during the message, my 9-year-old son Jay came to the realization that the children who were not on the ark didn't make it." And you can see some children in the picture. He looked at me with such sad, questioning face, and all I could say was, their parents didn't make sure they were on the ark. Right? We got to make sure our kids are on the ark. Now, here's a disclaimer, okay? Because I know some of you have grown children like me. And sometimes our children decide for themselves not to get on the ark. After you've raised them in a godly way, you have pointed them in the way they should go, the decision is ultimately theirs, right? You cannot drag them onto the ark. You cannot force them onto the ark. But you shouldn't beat yourself up. I was like, wait a minute. You're timing me too? I was like, okay, wrap it up. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Here we go. But the only thing that we can do as parents of grown children who maybe have made the decision not to get on the ark, the figurative ark, right? Be persistent in prayer and give it to God. It's powerful. Okay, we never know what God has in store. So my prayer for you is that you feel encouraged to be a Hannah in a world full of Jezebels. Hannah prayed, "My heart rejoices in the Lord." So God bless y'all. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Yes.